So in this last video, what we did is we had this get login data. We passed in the username and password. We set up our variables, executed our SQL query, and then we processed that data. So in this video, we need to go and link this data to this login button so that we can actually log in and make it work. So for that to work, we need to go and have a look in our index.php file, which is this page over here, and see what we know about this login button. So over here on line 31, we have this submit button here. And if we scroll over here, we see submit, submit, and login. Now this login word here is what we see on the page. So just to sort of show that to you, if I change it to login 2, refresh my page, it changes to login 2. Now this button over here has got an ID and a name of submit. So when I go over into my PHP, that is the value that I can use to trigger this function. So before we go into our page, let me go and open up localhost functions process. And if I have a look over here and I go var dump $post, I'm not going to get any data here, but we can see here that we've got an empty array. Now let's go and have a look over here. I go Jeff123, which satisfies my JavaScript validation. Click on login, and now here I've got this array, and we can see that data is all being passed in. So here I've got this username, user field, which is a value of Jeff. I've got a pass field, and that's got my password in there. And I've got the submit field, which we recognize from our name variable that I showed you before in our index.php file. Now the reason why that still says login 2 is because I didn't refresh my page before we got there, okay? So that's what I've just done. So let me just go and make sure that that's back to what it was. Right, so I'll comment that out and just leave it sitting there. And the way that we access that value is now I need to set up an if statement. And this if statement is going to check which button was pressed. So I use this function built into PHP called isSet. So in other words, that means is the value of this item set? Or do we have a value associated with this item? And I use this global variable called post. So I go $_post, and then I can type in submit. Now, why am I using post? Because if we look over in our index.php page, I have got this method here, and I've got post here. If I set this to get, then I would need to go and say $_get to get that value. However, we want to secure our data that we send through because we are asking for a username and password. So let me set that back to post, and then we are good to go. Right, so now that I've got this value here set, what I want to check now is to see if indeed user and password aren't empty, that there is some value to these variables. So I go user, and I go is not empty, and I go post, square bracket, and username, like this. And I can just copy and paste this, type in pass, change this into pass. And what I've now got is I've got two variables that will return true if they have a value. It's not going to check what the value is. It's just going to check, do they have a value or not? Now, our JavaScript does this as well. But in this case, if our PHP is the first point of check where we have our values checked, we want our PHP to be able to do some validation as well. So now that I've got this, I'm going to set up another if statement and ask for my two variables, which both of them are booleans, so they should either return true or false. And if they are both true, then I'm going to call login data, and I'm going to pass in my two variables, my two post requests that are over here. And the first one is user, and the other one is over here called pass. And this is my function. So now what's happening is when I click that button, submit, it's going to check, hey, is submit one of the buttons that I can use to process? If that is true, which it is in this case, it's going to check again if indeed post user and post pass are empty. And if they are not, we check that over here, then we're going to call in this login data where we can pass in these two values. So if we go save our file, we refresh our page, then what we're going to do is type in Jeff1234, and if I click on login, we then go and see that that did not work. So let me go in over here. Oh, right. I think, does that make a difference over there? Right, I need to do double quotes for my variables to work. So Jeff4, login, and now it says that I haven't got it logged in. And the reason why is because I haven't started a session. So it says here undefined variable session. So it doesn't know about session that we've declared up here, because at the top of my process.php page, I need to go and type in session start so that we can actually get this working. So let me try that again. Jeff1234. And now indeed I get to my admin page. So if we log in over here, we go on admin, index.php. Here there's an error which relates to a different query, which we will make next. So ignore that for now. But here we can see that my values are indeed in my in the fields because of my login. And once we've created the right functions, I can update my user or I can delete my user. So once all of this is complete, all of this data here is functional. So in the next video, what I'm going to create is I'm going to create another query, which is going to populate this table so that we can see which users are in our table. And that is another select query. And after that select query, we're going to go and look at insert, update, and delete and see how we implement those.